Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Can everyone hear? Inshallah, we're going to start soon. I'm just trying to organize all the things on the laptop, inshallah. Is the voice sound coming okay? Is any static or any sound in the background that you're hearing on my side, or is everything, alhamdulillah, pretty good? Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, I'm just trying to, sorry, bear with me guys for a minute. I'm just trying to stream live on our Facebook page. So I'm not a very tech savvy individual, so just trying my best here, inshallah. Okay. Okay. Can someone do me a favor and go on to the Al-Ihsan Facebook website and just see if it's live there now? Okay, great. It's good working, alhamdulillah. No, we cannot. We've set up the webinar because of the amount of students, the quantity, that nobody can unmute their mic. Rather, they can type to me, inshallah, and I can answer any questions that way. Just so there's no disturbance for the other students. And everyone can see my screen? Yes? Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. إن الحمد لله كفى والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah, today is the second day of our workshop, and we'll be focusing on particularly the fiqh and fasting and the rulings pertaining to that, inshallah ta'ala. Yesterday, you had learned from Mufti Taha the rulings of zakat, and inshallah that was very beneficial for all of you. I heard, alhamdulillah, very good feedback. So today, inshallah, we'll be focusing on the fasting, especially with the approach of Ramadan. So inshallah, will be very beneficial for all of you with the forthcoming of Ramadan. So before we start the fiqh, because Salat al-Dhuhr will come in between, I prefer that inshallah we'll talk about some general concept or or understanding that a Muslim should have about fasting and the month of Ramadan with its near approach. And then inshallah we'll talk about the details and all of the fiqh from the beginning, inshallah, to the end. So the first thing is that alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the bounty of Islam. And without any doubt in our minds and our heart, there's no ni'mah, there's no bounty greater than the bounty of Islam. And secondary to that bounty is the bounty and gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to act within its boundaries. So not only is it a ni'mah, not only is it a blessing of the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has granted us the ability to be Muslims, but it is also a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to live within those guidelines. This Islam is fitratullah allati fatara an-nas alayha. This religion, Islam, is the pure way of life. And we live in a time where the way of life that people have become very subjective. And the subjectiveness has resulted in an objective look, which stands on a misguided perception. So this is with the involvement of the world today, that individually people see things through their own perspective and their own subjective individual outlook, and based on that they apply what is right and wrong. And in many cases that can result in misguidance or ignorance. It's called, what in Arabic we call it al-jahala al-murakkaba. It is that when a human being is to use their knowledge and assume that to be correct, and in many cases he could be incorrect, the outcome of that knowledge will inevitably result in ignorance. So because this world that we live in today, and it's not only about this century or this generation in 2020. However, if you look throughout the past years and generations throughout civilization, you'll find that human beings have differed in their way of life to great extents. And the way people lived, even in Canada, even though these are more modern countries and the countries have not existed for over hundreds and hundreds of years. And the short life of or existence of these countries and these governments that exist, like Canada and the USA, and within the last few hundred years, you find that they, within that time frame, it is subject to so much change. So it is very hard for a regular human being to understand what is the correct way of life when the way of life constantly changes. And this is why Al-Islam is definitely the most correct and true religion. Because Islam is the religion that corresponds and works according to the natural disposition of the human being. Fitratullah allati fatara an-nas alayha. That fitrah, that way of life, that nature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with, Islam is in accordance to that nature, not rejecting or contrary to it. So because of that, it is a great blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to live within the right methodology. That's why I was saying that as Islam itself, to be a Muslim itself, is the greatest blessing. Then secondary to that blessing is the blessing of living within Islam. And this second blessing See, when you look into the people, you look into the world, if you look at it in a global view, you'll find that out of all of the people that exist, only those who Allah has chosen have fallen within the blessing of Islam. Then within those under the banner of Islam, only those whom Allah has given ability and has given tawfiq, what we call tawfiq, Allah has given them, granted them the ability to live within those guidelines, only those people are living Islam. So this is why I said that there are two great ni'mas and they come hand in hand. Once one bounty has come, Islam, we want and we desire the second bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is the practice and implications of Islam in our life. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made time. Allah has made not only time, Allah has also made the instruments of time, the measurements of time. Allah says in Quran, هي مواقيت للناس يسألونك عن الأهلة قل هي مواقيت للناس. They ask you about the moons. What is their purpose? Allah says that they are measurements or instruments to measure time. The lunar month ends and starts through the phases, different possible phases that the moon goes in through. And through observing the moon, we are able to see the new month coming. So this is what we apply also even today to recognize the beginning and also the end of the month of Ramadan. So time itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made so many different instruments in this universe to use to tell time and to recognize time. And that is also the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the sun is rising is an indication of the day, and its setting is the indication of the night. So through those instruments, through those means, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us the ability to recognize those things and time through them. And they're so significant in every single aspect of a human being's life and the existence of the world and universe itself, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes oath on these things. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا أَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah makes oath by the sun and the light that it brings. And Allah makes oath by the land and the sky and the day and the night. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also makes oath in this surah in regards to the soul of the human being. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. And after all of these oaths Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes, and the general rule in the Arabic language is that the purpose of making an oath is to precede the significant message that will come next. So in the Arabic language, and just as the same in English, it's a general logic in speech, that if I were to say wallahi, wallahi, by Allah, then the statement that comes after it is to affirm, it is for me to extend to you the importance of that speech or the truthness of it. So if you asked me that, Nabil, is it Ramadan? Has Ramadan started, commenced? I would say, wallahi, verily, by Allah, it has started. Which is indication to the truthfulness of that statement that comes after the oath. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't make one oath in the Quran here in this surah, Surah Ash-Shams. Rather, Allah makes oath upon oath, and then the message is so significant. After making all of these oaths through the sun and the moon and the sky and the land and the day and the night and the soul, and the nafs. Allah says, أَلْهَمَهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Allah had created that soul and put in that soul the inclination towards good deeds and also the inclination towards bad deeds. So this teaches us that Islam is fully aware of the fitrah. Islam is fully aware of the fitrah and the natural disposition of the human being, which results in the truthfulness of Islam. So now Al-Islam is teaching us about ourselves, not us rather learning about ourselves. Because if a person learns about himself, and every individual spends his entire life learning about himself, it is not definite whether they will come to a proper realization or not. They will come onto the correct understanding of themselves. Rather, if a person relies on the understanding of Islam, Islam will guide them to how they should understand themselves. So the fitratullah. And the fitrah, the natural way of the human being, is an inclination, is a desire. And sometimes those desires are good, and sometimes a person also has inclination towards bad. It doesn't make them a bad person, actually it makes them a human being. Now, the reason why I want to kind of introduce this understanding in our concept of Ramadan and fiqh of siyam, fasting, is because when you understand this about the human being, you understand this about Al-Islam, you will find that now you're able to understand what is the fundamental principal purpose of Ramadan. Since the human being has inclination towards good and bad, what is he supposed to do? What is he or she supposed to do? Allah says, after this, talking about فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, Allah has placed into this soul, into this human being's cardinal inclinations, Allah has placed in it a inclination towards good and an inclination towards bad. Then after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Successful, prosperous is the one who has purified that soul. And the ruined and in loss, failed, is the person who has caused the ruin, or has basically impurified that soul. Yani, what it means is that when you have this inclination as a human being, which is inevitable, which is natural, our goal as a human being, as a Muslim, as a believer, as a human being in general, is to recognize this and then build a discipline to bring us towards purification. Otherwise, there's only an opposite to that, which is acting freely on your desires and your free will, even to the extent of hurting yourself and your spirituality, and thus ruining your soul. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that us as human beings, we require discipline to achieve that goal. And to achieve that disciplines, to acquire this purification, this tazkiyatun nafs or tasawwuf that you hear about, online and through books, and about the Salaf Salih and through history of Islam, this tazkiyah, this purification, is one of the maqasid of Sharia. It is one of the major purposes that the prophets were sent to the people for. And Ramadan and time and moments Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with to take advantage of the opportunity to purify. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, kutiba alaykum as-siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, la'allakum tattaqun. O you who have believed, you have been asked to fast, just as the same of those that was requested from those before you. In the same manner, you are not the first people to fast. Rather, this was a medium, this was a message, this was a tool, a spiritual tool that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted us Muslims in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as granting that opportunity to those before. Both of them given this blessing of fasting for the same fundamental purpose. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may achieve and acquire a quality and trait of at-taqwa. Like the Prophet ﷺ, he said, at-taqwa ha-huna. Taqwa, piety, consciousness of Allah, it is here in this heart, this chest. وَأَشَارَ إِلَى صَدْرِهِ, and he points at his chest, his heart. So we want to gain taqwa. It's not only about showing the world that we don't eat, or showing the world that, oh, it's a Ramadan. This is a very important part, to display the da'wah, to show the people what is a Ramadan, the value of Ramadan. But it is actually to channel that benefit of Ramadan, channel it. Take it, acquire it, and digest it into the heart, to bring it into your nafs. And Ramadan, fasting, is one of the most powerful ways to bring discipline to the human being. Some of our Salaf Salih, they would control their eating to an extreme extent. It's mentioned Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, that as his life, as time had passed throughout his life, in the end time of his life, the Imam, great Imam, he used to literally live off dates and almonds, and specifically almonds, where he was not consuming to a great extent. This was not because he was not allowed to eat. It is halal. Allah says, eat and enjoy and drink that which is halal for you in this world. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, but don't be extravagant. However, Imam al-Bukhari understood that one of the desires a human being has, it sprouts from their digestion, from their stomach, from what they consume. So there are two important things to bring discipline into our consumption. One is the amount we consume, and what we consume. So it is very important for Muslims to make sure that they are consuming 100% halal. And that is a result of spirituality. The Prophet ﷺ told Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anh, he said, O Sa'ad, I will give you advice. It's mentioned in Sahih Bukhari. He said, O Sa'ad, I will give you advice. أطيب مطعمك تكون مستجاب الدعوة. That, O Sa'ad, purify what you consume, Allah will accept your prayer. He joined the two, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, for Sa'ad. Sa'ad, if you purify what your body consumes, how you deal with your body, it result in that it will reflect in your spirituality, also in the acceptance of your dua. So Sa'ad radiallahu anh, he took that advice very, very significantly, and he adhered to it throughout his entire life, where he became mustajab al-da'awat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered all of his prayers, to the point where he would pray for other people that became blind and then they would see, and people that were sick and then they would become healthy, and people that were poor and then they would become affluent. This was a result of his adherence to the discipline that the Prophet ﷺ taught him. And you'll read in Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya and other books of hadith in Sahih Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ says that, O you who have believed, O you who believe, you have been commanded the same thing the prophets have been commanded. كلوا من الطيبات كلوا من الطيبات وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا, eat pure things. وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا, and do good deeds. Some of the ulama have said that وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا, do good deeds, is connected to eating. Yani, what it means is, eat pure food, eat halal rizq, sustenance, and that will result in good deeds. That will result in good deeds. So the purpose of this is, obviously we're talking about Sawm and Ramadan specifically. We're not going to be eating, we're not going to be focusing on eating. But it's really to understand the purpose of Ramadan. Our purpose in Ramadan is to bring our body into control, our mind, soul, and spirit and body. Our mind, soul, spirit, body, every part of our life is to come into complete control. And an important part of their life is the physical. It is how we consume, what we consume, when we consume, to what extent do we consume, how much do we eat. And this is a prophetic teaching. The Prophet ﷺ said, إن الكافر لا يأكل في 7 أمعاء وإن المؤمن لا يأكل في ميعا واحدا. That the one who believes, he will only eat 1 stomach's full, and the one who disbelieves, he will eat 7 stomachs full. Then his focus is to eat and consume, and just consume constantly. But the one who believes, his focus will just be to make sure he maintains his health and the right that his body has upon him. So, as we approach Ramadan and we talk about the fiqh of fasting, these rulings are guidelines within, the spectrum of our fast. However, it's very important. The reason why we are focusing on educating at Al-Ihsan the people on fasting and the fiqh of fasting is not the ruling in itself. It's to understand the importance of the rulings and the value of the fast, and to educate ourselves so that you and I are full-heartedly, with our mind, soul, and body, constantly a part of our fasting. And it is not becoming only a custom or ritual that every Ramadan comes, my life has changed from sleeping at 11 o'clock to now sleeping at 4 in the morning. And instead of waking up at 8 o'clock, I wake up at just before Dhuhr. Many people think it's a time shift. It's a shift from, okay, my day starts later now, and my night as well goes later. Other than that, there's not much change in his life. So what he'll do is he'll sleep throughout the day, where his fasting while awake is also only about 6 to 7 hours. And then he doesn't stand in the night for Taraweeh. He does not stand in the night for reading the Quran, Qiyamul Layl. He doesn't spend his time in tilawah of Quran. So we also need a discipline to focus on what is our Ramadan supposed to consist of. What is our fasting supposed to be consisting of? We're supposed to be controlling our tongue. It's supposed to remind us that we are fasting, and this discipline requires, this moment requires a constant awareness of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you think about it, throughout the day and outside of Ramadan, when you're not fasting, you're eating whenever you get hungry or whenever food is presented to you and you enjoy. But now, because you're fasting, you're constantly concerned, naturally. And all of you will agree that you become constantly concerned, and your cerebral, your mind, truly adapts to this constant recognition automatically. So when you're making wudu and your mouth is dry, you make sure, okay, I'm not going to swallow it. And when you're speaking, you think, oh, I'm fasting, so I got to make sure that I'm not speaking ill of people. I'm not swearing. I'm not cursing. I'm not doing any of these things. So that control of your body, it truly actually does naturally result in discipline. But we are not supposed to work on a low level of discipline. Actually, because Ramadan is a time that comes and the time that goes, just like all other times. Our goal is to build an extremely high level of discipline of Ramadan, because inevitably after Ramadan, the shaitan will come out. The marad al-shayateen. They'll be unchained, roaming about, causing corruption, and working against us. And then our iman will immediately start to decrease. Our discipline will be tested. Our deeds that we made, or the habits, good habits that we built, will now be tested on their steadfastness. So it's important for us to understand that when in Ramadan, we should keep the bar so high that when it shifts after Ramadan, which inevitably will, that we're not going back to the life before Ramadan. We're still increasing. We're still moving forward. We're still benefiting. We're still changing. We're still alternating our life for the better good. So these are some of the things that I want you to keep in mind, inshallah ta'ala, while we are going to be going over the rulings and the fiqh of fasting, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make that beneficial for yourself and myself. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to practice in the month of Ramadan the way that pleases Him in Ramadan and after Ramadan. Now, because it is 1:50, we should take a 20-minute break, inshallah, for Dhuhr Salah. So all of you individually should pray your Dhuhr Salah, and inshallah we'll recommence at 2:15, and then we'll start our study of the fiqh, inshallah. Is the sound and everything still clear on your guys' end? Yes? Hello? Can someone respond? Okay, jazakallah khair. Okay, so let's stop, and inshallah we'll pray Salah, and then we'll continue. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Is everyone with us? So before we begin, why don't you guys tell me, where are most of you from? BC? MashaAllah. Anybody outside of BC here? Montreal, mashallah. How were you guys all there for the Zakat seminar as well? Yeah, okay, mashallah. Zimbabwe, mashallah. You are joining from Zimbabwe, that's very nice. Allah bless you. Allahu Akbar. Just trying to start the live stream again, inshallah, then we can continue bi-idhnillah. Shaykh Taha, mashallah, did a very good job in that Zakat seminar. A lot of good research he had. Questions in the Q&A? Let me check. So somebody's asking about my credentials. My bio should be on Al-Ihsan. I studied in Al-Ihsan as well as in the UK. I still currently study Iftah, and I do conventional studies as well, alhamdulillah. I also am a part of numerous organizations. And advisory boards for all different aspects, Islamic programs, instructing, as well as alhamdulillah zakat organizations and finance organizations, alhamdulillah. Okay, an-nafs, someone was asking the difference between an-nafs and ar-ruh, the spirit and the soul. Generally speaking, the nafs is usually referred to as the inclinations, that which is under the immediate control of the human being. So the nafs desires and inclines towards good and bad, and the human being has the ability to control the nafs. And for this reason, he is accountable of the reactions and the actions that they kind of work or they indulge in according to their nafs. So nafs is within the person's control. And this is why it's important, it's necessary to discipline the nafs. As for the spirit, الروح الروح من أمر الله يسألونك عن الروح قل الروح من أمر ربي. That they asked about the ruh, and that is within the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ruh is the existence of the human being spiritually in this world. So when the ruh is taken, the human being doesn't exist anymore. His body may exist, but he does not spiritually exist anymore. And there's no more conscience there available. We are going to get to that point of i'tikaf. Inshallah, I'll answer it when we get to i'tikaf. Okay. If there's any questions about, the kind of introductory talk that I had, that I gave before our break, then I can answer those. Otherwise, inshallah, I can start the program. Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So now inshallah we're going to study fiqh and the rulings regarding fasting, inshallah. Now here are the contents. We'll talk about the basics and we'll go gradually move forward. And obviously there'll be specific questions that will come. However, to understand the basics kind of leads towards understanding the practical questions that sprout during the fasting, as what breaks the fast and what does not break the fast, inshallah. The first thing, inshallah, is that what is fasting? ما هو الصوم? What is fasting? The word sawm, fasting, in the Arabic language is mutlaqul imsak. It generally means to refrain. Mutlaqul imsak, to refrain. Now, in Sharia, within the definition and of Islam that we use, it is slightly different. In Islam, it is al-imsak عن الشهوتين شهوة البطن شهوة الفرج. And إلى وقت معلوم, or some have said والإمساك على وجه مخصوص في وقت مخصوص. Fasting within Sharia, within Islam, is a terminology or an action that is defined by abstinence from particular things. And those are consumption and intimacy. And that abstinence must exist completely between two times, between from the moment of commencement, which is Fajr, Salah, and the moment of conclusion, which is Salatul Maghrib. This is the definition of fasting in Islamic law. Now, Sawm is mentioned in Quran that Maryam alayhi salam, she did Sawm as well, but her Sawm was Sawm of not speaking as well. So she also refrained from not speaking. Actually, can you guys just give me 1 second? I need to connect the charger to the laptop. So in regards to the linguistic definition, this is based on what has been mentioned in the Quran about Maryam radiallahu anha, where she said, "Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma falan ukallima al-yawma insiyya." When she came back with her son, Isa alayhi salam, she didn't speak. The people said that, "Who is this? What is this child?" And she said, "Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma." I have vowed a fast to my Lord. فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا. Therefore, I will not speak to a single human being. Which is an indication that their fast meant also imsak anil kalam, to refrain from speaking. Which therefore indicated to us that in the Arabic wording, huwa mujarradul imsak. It is refraining. It is generally refraining, and the what is being refrained is subjective to what kind of fast a person is doing. And then in Islam, the definition is clear. It is specifically to refrain from any type of consumption that reaches to the stomach or to the brain, as well as any intimacy that falls under a certain category, which would be complete intercourse. And we'll talk inshallah about those little details. Now, fasting is necessary within fasting is an intention. And we'll talk inshallah what type of intention is required. But we need to stipulate the time. So in Sharia, when we are fasting, our intention is to refrain from these acts of eating and intercourse, etc., from the time of Fajr to the time of Maghrib. Within that time frame, these two things are not permissible and they're contrary against the fast. Now, to gain reward, it's necessary to understand that you are fasting for the sake of Allah. So if a person were to not intend to fast, nor have any desire to fast at all, however, he spent an entire day not eating because of maybe he was too busy, or maybe he was there was no food available to him. So because of that, he says, oh, you know what, I'm going to get the reward of fasting. Well, it's not true. There are certain parameters around the fasting that is required to exist for it to be considered a fast. And it's not necessarily only refraining from food and consumption. A person also has to have the intention to fast. The intention to fast is a required part of the fast itself. So you need two parts of the intention. You need to understand two things. Is what intention you have in fasting, which is to refrain from a time to another time, within that time to refrain from certain things, as well as the purpose that the fast is being done for is لِتَقَرُّبْ إِلَى اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى, to gain closeness to Allah, to gain the pleasure of Almighty Allah. Now, fasting is a fard. It is amongst the arkan, the pillars of Islam. There are 5 pillars of Islam in terms of their actions. This is based on a few ahadith. One hadith is the hadith of Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anh, that has been mentioned in Sahih Muslim, and it is a very famous hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had mentioned, "Bunya al-Islamu ala khams." Islam has been founded upon 5 things. One is ash-shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Second is iqam as-salah, performing salah. Third is ita'u zakah, giving zakat. Fourth is som shahr Ramadan, fasting in the month of Ramadan. And fifth is hajjul bayt, performing the pilgrimage of hajj. Therefore, fasting has a great significance in the sight of Islam. And the fard, or the fardiyah, the obligation of fasting, is something in which there can be no doubt. So it is impermissible, and it is against the tenets of faith for a person to not believe in the obligation of fasting in the month of Ramadan. So it's a part of being a Muslim. To that extent, it's a part of being a Muslim, to be a believer, to be considered a believer, to believe that fasting in the month of Ramadan is a necessary obligation. And this is a part of our belief. This is based on the hadith of Jibreel, where Jibreel alayhi salam had come in the form of Dihya al-Kalbi radiallahu anh. Some say that it was in the form of a traveler, which is the most prominent position, that Jibreel alayhi salam came in the form of a traveler in this state, and he sat with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Mal Islam? What is al-Islam?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, "These 5 regarding these 5 pillars." His answer was the 5 pillars. So we know that Islam, one of the fundamental pillars that Islam is based on, is fasting. So it's necessary for a person to have all 5 pillars in their life. Now, upon whom is fasting obligatory upon? Now, fasting is obligatory upon generally 4 conditions, and 3 of them are practical today. One of them only existed in the time in the past. The 3 conditions that exist today is the condition of being mature. So baligh, being mature. If a person has not hit puberty and is still a child, then it is not necessary for them to fast. However, it is common that young children, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, who may have not hit puberty, they still tend to fast, and the parents also request them to fast to get them into the custom of fasting, to make it easier for them when they, inshallah, they are of age. However, it is not fard upon them. So if they miss it, they will not be sinful, because there's no sin upon a child that is not mature. Is in terms of the predominant official Hanafi opinion, that when a child is 15, when a boy is 15 years old, then he is considered an adult, whether or not he has hit puberty at the time. As you know, that biologically speaking, scientifically speaking, it is possible for a person to hit maturity at 17, 18 years old. And the scholars have disagreed and differed in terms of what are a sign of puberty completely, as some signs exist in others, and sometimes others lack those signs. So it does become very difficult to define every human being as, to kind of label people as hitting puberty based on a very rigid criteria. There have been criteria that have been given by the scholars, and those are applicable, definitely. However, in the case where there is some confusion, then 15 years old is the age where they'll be considered to be baligh, unless they have stated that to be before. So it is possible, yes, a boy can be baligh at 12 or 13 years old. Now, the second condition is that the person be a Muslim. So it is not fard, it is not necessary upon a non-Muslim to perform fasting. And the third condition is to be sane, and of sane mind and sound mind. If a person is sane and of sound mind, then it is fard upon them to do fasting. If they are insane, mentally ill, incapable mentally of performing fasting, then it is not obligatory upon them to fast. These are the first three major criteria that exist. And there are some that fall within the last category of being sane or insane, and those are like al-marad, al-tari', illness that can come upon a person at a moment. And example of that is sickness that can affect a person, and then he's incapable of fasting. However, we'll talk more about that in detail, inshallah, in the coming pages. Oh, that inshallah, pregnant women, they'll be coming up. This is just the three general conditions, very general conditions that have been made, that when these three conditions are found, meaning if the person is sane, the person is mature, and the person is a Muslim, these are the three conditions to bring them within the realm of obligation. Then there'll be many other cases within that, and which we will talk about. Now let's talk about a little bit of an intention. Don't worry, inshallah, all of this will be covered. Intentions. Now, the intention of fasting in the month of Ramadan has differed. Now, the Hanafi scholars have separated the rulings of intentions, and this is also based on the hadith. For example, the hadith of Ashura. The Prophet ﷺ, when it was Ashura, he had it announced to the people that whoever has not eaten, and this is actually past the time of Fajr, so there was no way that the person could have made the intention before. And the Prophet ﷺ had it announced to the people that today is the day of Ashura. Whoever has not eaten, then he should remain that abstinence and continue and now consider himself as a fasting person and fast. And he also said for those who have eaten, that they should try to fast or leave do tashabbuh bis-sa'im, to resemble the one fasting, because they were unaware of Ashura at the time before that, so they're not at fault and there was no mistake on their end, and then they should at least resemble the one fasting. Now, since Ramadan is a specific time itself, then it is not necessary for the person to make intention of fasting in the month of Ramadan. Rather, it's necessary for them to fast because there is no other fast they could possibly do in that month other than Ramadan. For example, if a person had missed fasts in Ramadan in 2019, so he missed 10 fasts, he was sick or traveling, or a woman was in menstruation, and then this year's Ramadan has come, she cannot make the intention to fast the qada, to make up for the past fasts. Rather, no matter what her intention be, whether she were to make it of nafil or he were to make it of qada or any other intention, because the time of Ramadan, if a person is capable of fasting, there is no option of to fast other than the fast of Ramadan. The automatic fast intention will be applied only to a month of Ramadan. Like, for example, let's say if a person didn't have to fast. Let's say they were traveling. So the obligation to fast is not there. So it's not farad for them to fast, nor is it necessary. However, the person still chooses to fast. So he says, oh, you know what, I'm not fasting for the month of Ramadan, so I don't have to fast right now. Why don't I make up some past fast? Or why don't I do a nafil salah fast? Why don't I do an optional fast? Supererogatory. We would say that that's actually invalid, that intention. If he were to, even though he does not need to fast, if he were to fast, it would automatically become the fast of Ramadan, because that time is makhsus, muta'ayyin. It is a specific time that cannot be unspecified. For this reason, for exactly this reason, there has been a little bit of lenience in the intention. Is it necessary to have intention before Fajr Salah? And if it is it yes, or is it not necessary? If it's not necessary, then till what extent or to what time does a person have the right to make the intention? So the majority opinion that is followed is the official opinion of the Hanafi scholars in this, and that is that yes, it is permissible that a person make intention after Fajr Salah, meaning whilst he is technically supposed to be in the state of fasting. So let's imagine that it's Maghrib time, so there's no fasting. I'm supposed to fast tomorrow, but I don't make any intention. So suhoor time comes, then I pray Fajr and I sleep. Then I wake up and I forget that I made no intention. Is it valid to still perform the fast in this case? Yes, it will. A person is allowed to make intention even within the daytime, provided there are two conditions when it is a fast, like in the month of Ramadan. The first condition is that the fast will be valid as long as they have not yet eaten or drank or consumed anything. So it's not like he can eat after Fajr and then say, you know what, I want to fast. So I still have time for my intention. No. The condition, primary condition is that no consumption should have happened. So he's still in the state of abstinence. The second condition that needs to be followed in this state is the condition of time. So it's not possible that a minute before Maghrib, 10 minutes before Maghrib, he says, okay, I'm fasting today because I haven't eaten all day. No. The opinion is Al-Dahwatul Kubra. Al-Dahwatul Kubra means midday. And midday is not, you take 24 hours and then you just split it in two. No. Or 12 o'clock noon, as they say. No, it's not like this. Midday, Al-Dahwatul Kubra, is to take the time of Fajr, when Fajr begins, and then the time of Dhuhr, and whatever time, whether that be 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, that time in between, to cut that time in half. So if it were 8 hours, to be 4 hours. The intention must be made before the end of Al-Dahwatul Kubra, which is the midday between Fajr and Al-Dhuhr. Also, you can make it before Fajr. So if you were to make the intention before suhoor, meaning you were to make it at Isha time, and you have not yet eaten your suhoor, this is also valid. There is no issue there. The general time of beginning of intention will start from the possible beginning of, or the end of the last fast would be from Maghrib time. On an example here, I've given here. An example is Maghrib time on Monday, where that Sunday fast is now concluded. So now from Maghrib till Al-Dahwatul Kubra, to that midday definition, all of this time is waqtun lin-niyya, munasib, qabil lin-niyya. It is a time that is permissible to accept the niyyah within. There's a question here. Basically, you're saying that if you the question that is being asked here is that basically that since in Ramadan you cannot make up any past fasts, then is it necessary to make them up before the new Ramadan? No. It is best to have all your fasts made up before the commencement of a new shahr, a new month of Ramadan. However, it is not necessary. So it is possible that in 2019, 5 fasts were missed. 5 fasts were excused from the person at the time. They have to make it up. They can fast the entire month of Ramadan in 2020 and then make up those 5 after that. It is okay. Not sure. I will try to find those. I don't know if those were for Shaykh Taha. Okay, one second. Some of the questions here about i'tikaf, I'm going to answer these inshallah once we get to i'tikaf. Usually in the books of fiqh, Sawm is discussed, then after that i'tikaf. Especially because i'tikaf comes at the end of Ramadan, generally speaking. Dhuhr means yes, the starting of Dhuhr time, yes. Not the ending of Dhuhr time, starting of Dhuhr. Are there any questions here? Otherwise I can continue, inshallah. Answer questions accordingly. So here I already kind of mentioned this above, is Al-Dahwatul Kubra. How is the midday calculated? So let's say here, for example, Fajr Salah were to begin at 4 a.m. If Fajr Salah were to begin, meaning now the person is fasting, technically it's not permissible for him to consume at 4 o'clock a.m. And then they have Maghrib time at 9 o'clock. Where is the midday for this? So So the midday will come in between. So this is because after Maghrib is technically considered the night. And there are two parts, there's the day and the night. So Maghrib till just the moment before Fajr, before the starting of Fajr, this whole period is the time of the night. So in Maghrib you have Maghrib Salah. Then at a certain time during the darkness, Isha begins. Then from Isha till the beginning of Fajr, this is also the late part of the night. Then when Fajr begins, so that whole part was the night from Maghrib to the just before the beginning of Fajr. This is the night. Then the daytime is from Fajr to just before the beginning of Maghrib. So that time is calculated and then split in half. And then whatever that is, then you know Al-Dahwatul Kubra, then you know what your midday is. So it doesn't have to be Dhuhr time, it doesn't have to be 11 o'clock. It is subject to what that time of day is at that moment. So obviously it becomes longer in the summer as opposed to the winter. In the winter it can be very short, but this year our Ramadan is in the summer, so you will see that you'll have more time. A couple scenarios here that are kind of good to go over because these are common questions that people ask. Here the question is, Ahmed woke up to partake in suhoor. However, he forgot to make intention. Will his fast be valid? I would like you guys all to think about the question, reread it, and then on the chat group, you can say yes or no. Yes being it would be valid, and no being it's not valid based on the information that you've been given so far. Okay. Good, alhamdulillah. Looks like everybody understood. So, yes, his intention will suffice because of the condition that as long as it was before midday and he had not eaten or consumed. Okay, next, inshallah, we're going to be talking about what if okay, Khalid Khan's asking, what if someone forgets? What would that be considered as a missed sawm that he or she has to make up? Meaning forgets past the time of midday, so there was no more option of making intention? Is that what you mean, Khalid? Okay, it was answered already. No, that was answered. The ruling was answered, but yeah, one in your scenario where the person completely forgets and the time has passed. If he completely forgets the time has passed, then there are two things that he should do. First thing is a tashabbuh bis-sa'im. Now he's technically not fasting because he did not make the valid intention within that time frame, but he should not eat. He should resemble the person fasting. The second thing is, yes, you would need to make up that fast. Okay. On the authority of Sayyidina Abu Darda radiallahu an, The Prophet ﷺ said 3 things are from the characteristics of prophethood: to hasten to open the fast, to delay suhoor, the pre-dawn meal, and to place the right hand over the left hand in Salah, narrated by At-Tabrani. The first 2 are connected to fasting. So it is a sunnah, it is preferred that when the time of fast has ended, concluded, then a person eats immediately. This is from the way of sunnah. It is mentioned in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, my nation will be in a state of good as long as they open their fast right away. So there's no need to delay. Once the time is mutayaqqan, once the time is known that, okay, Maghrib time is 9:04, then there is no need for a person to wait 10 minutes. Sometimes it's good if there is some confusion within the setting of the sun in your location, and times differ there, then it may be good to give it a few minutes, and this is like what many of the scholars have said, that give it a few minutes just to ascertain that there is no mistake. However, once the time has occurred, that there, inshallah, there is no plausible reason to doubt the concluding of the fast, then there is no need to delay it anymore. In the same way, there's no need for a person to eat early, finish 10-20 minutes before the time has started, Fajr. Rather, it's okay for a person to eat all the way till just a few minutes before, to make sure that he is not eating during the time that he is supposed to fast. If he does eat and he finds himself that he, for example, he were to eat at 9:04, and he finds out and he's intending to break his fast, and then he finds out later that that is not the time of Maghrib, rather Maghrib time was 9:20, then even though it was a mistake, it will still be required from him to make qada, to redo that fast, to make up for that fast, because it was not forgetfulness, it was a mistake, and a mistake is not the same as forgetfulness, and which we'll talk. There are many scenarios that will fall into this type of category. The same way, if the Fajr were to begin at 3:02, and the person were to think or assume that it was 3:15, and they were to keep eating, and they were to find out that no, Fajr already began in the time that he was eating, then he will have to make up for that fast. There will be no kafara, nor inshallah no sin, because it was a simple mistake. And the Prophet ﷺ said, that mistakes have been forgiven or pardoned for the people of my ummah. So inshallah there's no sin there, however it is necessary to still make up for that. Any questions before I move on? In the next hadith, Zayd bin Thabit relates that the Prophet ﷺ would stand up to offer Salah after eating his food, and the time between the start of Fajr and when the Prophet ﷺ would stop eating was equivalent to the recitation of 50 verses. So this is an indication that there was a little bit of gap, and it wasn't that he just ate and then prayed immediately within a moment. Which is uncommon. Most, even if you go to the masajid, etc., most people do keep a time about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes at least, to fall within that sunnah, and this is narrated in Sahih Bukhari. Now, when you break the fast, one mustahab, one preferred thing according to the hadith, it is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, narrated by Anas radiallahu anh, that the Prophet ﷺ, he would break his fast with consumption of fresh dates. If there were no fresh dates, then he would use dry dates. And if there were no dry dates available, then he alayhi salatu wasalam, would drink water. This is the dates are something that is common amongst the people. Most people have dry dates today because living in many countries where there are not fresh dates. However, there are some people that do not eat dates if they don't have it, etc. But they don't have a habit of breaking the fast then with water, and then they'll drink milk and other type of beverages, faluda and things that exist in different cultures. However, it's important that to adhere to the sunnah, and if a person is not consuming dates or dates are not available, then inshallah they should start with drinking some water. Any questions so far? These are basic, just kind of sunan and mustahabbat, you say, for everybody's knowledge, inshallah. Yeah. Now, there are some other things that have been mentioned in the books of fiqh, not necessary to mention here. Obviously, there are different types of fast: Sawm al-Fard, Sawm al-Wajib, Sawm Masnoon, Mustahab, Makruh. Even there are times where it is haram to fast, like on the days of Eid. However, we are going to be focusing on that which people can use immediately within the month of Ramadan. Next is kind of makruhat. Makruhat meaning what is detestable, what is disliked to do while in the state of fasting. To chew gum, and this is provided that the gum is not there. A person is not swallowing flavor and sugars and different type of taste. That's different. That would be breaking the fast. But chewing something rubber, even sometimes people have a habit of chewing something of no taste, some type of plastic or rubber, just kind of as a distraction during their fast. This is disliked. There's no need to do it, and it should be refrained from. It is also disliked to do jam'ur riq, to gather one's saliva to kind of make it like he's drinking something or bringing some moisture into his throat to relieve himself of the thirst, etc. To gather it in one's mouth for that purpose is disliked. Swallowing one's saliva, this is laysa fihi haraj, there's no harm in this, and it's completely permissible. However, to purposely gather the saliva to kind of quench one's thirst, this is disliked. Here, another thing is that sometimes a person is in the state of janaba through maybe a wet dream or intimacy with one's spouse during the time outside of their fasting, meaning after Maghrib and before the fasting of the next day. If a person falls into the state of janaba, into the state where they need to make ghusl, it would be extremely disliked, and it would be haram for them to delay it to the point that Fajr is missed, because they are missing the Salah. It would be disliked in their fasting because the fasting would still be intact, because they did not necessarily break their fast by any consumption or anything that invalidates the fast. However, because they have not done the ghusl and have not prayed the Salah, they have committed a grave sin. And another thing is toothpaste and tooth powder. Sometimes baking soda and things are used to kind of clean one's teeth, it would be disliked to use these things because of their taste, because of the taste. However, using the miswak, provided that the person does not refrains from chewing on the bristles and doesn't swallow it, because swallowing would be disliked. Accidentally swallowing a little bit would be disliked, and if it was done intentionally, then it would break the fast. And a person should refrain from doing that so that that doesn't happen. But using the miswak, according to the Hanafi scholars, is permissible, not only permissible, also mustahab, liked. According to the Shafi'i scholars, it is disliked to use the miswak during the time of fast because of the hadith that states that the khaluf, the smell that comes from the fasting person's mouth in the hadith, authentic hadith, is more beloved to Allah than the smell of musk or perfume. The interpretation of that hadith or the application of that hadith, there's a difference between the scholars. The Shafi'i scholars have said because of that fragrance being beloved to Allah coming from the mouth of the one fasting, that it's not appropriate for the person to alter that that fragrance because it's beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that state. However, the Hanafi scholars, they differ, saying that it is not the fragrance that comes from the mouth itself that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rather it is the emptiness of the stomach because of the fact that they are refraining from consumption. And the smell of the emptiness of the stomach is inevitable. A person has no control over that. It's happening either way. And the miswak is only cleaning the teeth and is hygiene for the mouth, in which that smell is not because of. So therefore they say it is mustahab, it is liked and preferred for a person to use miswak because they are maintaining hygiene as well as not contradicting the khaluf or the fragrance that comes from the emptiness of the stomach that comes from the person fasting, which emanates into the smell of into the mouth, and therefore there is no contradiction between the two, and it is still good for the person to maintain that fadila, the virtue of fasting, and that fragrance being beloved to Allah, as well as maintaining hygiene throughout the day. Some other things are complaining about hunger and thirst, because there should be sabr. This is a part, this is deep. A person is expected to have discipline. And discipline requires that there's no complaints. In the same way, many of the scholars said a person should go on with their daily life. They should not stop everything and say that, oh, because I'm fasting now, I'm going to become a couch potato. No, they should still be active. They should still be doing whatever they can. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were very adherent to living a very strong physical life while also being in the state of fasting. Other detestable things, other makruhat, are water. You can rinse your mouth out. You can clean your nose, but you shouldn't do it excessively to the point where you could possibly be swallowing water or sniffing water and consume, and therefore breaking your fast. So it's detestable to do those things excessively, as well as in our wudu. Then there will be no gargling, just the kind of the washing of the mouth. And the same way, the water should not be going to the nose bone, the soft bone, to protect, or as a precaution, so that the water is not consumed, the fast is not broken. In the same way, just as it is necessary in the ghusl, as we mentioned before, in ghusl, it's necessary. Let's say if a person were to do ghusl after Fajr Salah, it's still valid. They should be doing the ghusl, but they will not be gargling to their throat, nor will they be cleaning their nose till the bone. out of fear and precaution so that the fast does not break. Rather, they should be rinsing their mouth out and they should just be cleaning the nose. And that obligation to fulfill that which exists outside of Ramadan will drop, and they'll be absolved of that requirement in Ramadan due to the fast. Rafath, jidal, fighting, arguing, shatam, cursing, all of these things are extremely disliked. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَرُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صَوْمِهِ إِلَّا الْعَطَشُ وَالْجُوعِ. That many people who fast, there's nothing that exists in their fast apart from starvation and thirst. And that's because they don't refrain from looking at haram and listening to haram and speaking haram, and all of those things are required for the person is to so that they can maintain a spiritual fast as well as the physical fast. Swimming will not break your fast, but swimming could break your fast. Swimming itself could not break your fast. For example, if you're just laying in the tub, you're cooling off, this is totally fine. Just like taking a bath, a cold shower, without having to do ghusl is totally fine. But you should be very careful about any of that water getting into your throat or mouth. If you're going to swim, then the best suggestion I can give is that you swim in a way where your face and head from your neck above does not go underwater in any way. Now, inshallah, we're going to talk about al-muftirat. Al-muftirat are those things that will break the fast and invalidate the fast. They're contrary to the existence of fast, and thus they will nullify it. And this is a general rule. When an action exists and it's supposed to be done in a specific manner, there are certain actions that if they occur simultaneously within that action, they will nullify the existence of that action. So in fasting, the requirement of fasting is no abstinence from consumption. So if consumption were to occur, then it will nullify the existence of the fast. Just like prayer. When you're praying, the requirement is to not speak, and then when you speak, it will be contrary to the existence of fast, and the fast will be broken. I mean, the prayer will be broken, sorry. There are two conditions: that nothing reaches the stomach and the brain, or enters into the mouth or the rectum or nose. These are the channels. The result is stomach or brain, but the channels are what is prohibited from entering within, because a person, once they reach a certain point, they have no control over that reaching the stomach or the brain or not. If a fast is being invalidated, there are two results of the rulings. One is that the fast is being invalidated and needs to be made up for. So a fast was broken today, then you have to make up one fast. Sometimes there are severe breaking or nullifying of fast that will require two things. One is making up for that fast, and also a kafara, an atonement. An atonement means it is a requirement in Islam, a responsibility in Islam to do so that a person is absolving themselves of the sin that they should have not committed. And inshallah, we'll talk about details as that comes. Now here, when something is consumed, once it passes the mouth and it hits the throat, it is impossible to control where that is going and to stop it from that moment on. So the moment that it passes the mouth, then it will break the fast. So first, inshallah, we're going to talk about those muftirat, those things that invalidate the fast but only require the fast to be made up, meaning no atonement is a requirement. This, generally speaking, is when a person eats or drinks or does something accidentally. Accidentally. And there's a difference between accidentally and forgetfully. Now, accidentally is a person is aware, he is conscious of fasting, and consumption is made accidentally as a mistake. So I know I am fasting. An example I can give you is I know I am fasting. I'm aware of I'm fasting, so I'm not drinking the water, but my mouth is very dry. So I'm just rinsing it out. Then while rinsing it out, I accidentally consume the water. In that case, there is no forgetfulness. Rather, that is a mistake what person is doing, but conscious of the fasting. Sorry. Conscious of the fasting, and therefore the fast will be broken, because the hadith that says, where the Prophet ﷺ was asked by a man, and he said that, "O Messenger of Allah, I forgot that I was fasting, and then I ate or I drank." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Atimma ala sawmik, continue your fast. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَكَ اللَّهُ أَوْ سَقَاكَ." Because your consuming in the state of forgetting was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gave you that. And that hadith establishes forgetfulness, not mistaking. This is the difference of opinion between the scholars, and this is what has been acted upon. And there are some scholars that have said that accidents are also in the same category, but this is by no way the official opinion or the majority opinion that is held. So some examples: eating or drinking because one thought Maghrib entered, but it didn't, like I mentioned to you. Then they would have to make up for the fast. Eating or drinking because one doubted that Fajr entered, which I also mentioned. Eating or drinking forgetfully and thereafter thinking that the fast is broken, and then drinking deliberately or eating. So you ate forgetfully, so it was forgiven, but you didn't know that. So you thought my fast is broken, so you started eating. Now your fast is fully broken. Some other things in terms of consumption, for example, swallowing pebbles. Pebbles are something that is not typically eaten, however, is consumed. Then this person has to qada, they have to make up for that fast, but it is not necessary for them to do kafara. So it's not that everything has to be edible. Even those things that are not edible, if they're consumed, they will break the fast. Swallowing water accidentally, which I had mentioned. Swallowing blood that is in the gums, in the mouth, you start bleeding. And as long the rule is that, and this is the same rule that kind of exists when to recognize if your wudu is broken or not, when you're bleeding in your mouth, is that the wudu is broken when you spit and the blood is more than the amount of saliva. So when comparing the saliva to the blood, it's more bloody than liquidy from the saliva. Then in that case, the wudu breaks. The same way, if that type of blood were to exist, then they swallow that blood, then it would break their fast, and they would have to do qada of that. Swallowing toothpaste accidentally. Deliberately swallowing vomit that reaches a mouthful. So this is also based on the rules of wudu. If a person vomits, and this happens from acid reflux, and sometimes people eat a lot for suhoor, and the lack of digestion, or it's not very comfortable in their stomach, doesn't sit well. So reaction happens where the stomach kind of pushes the food as a half digested food, and it comes up. If it comes to the throat and then sits back down, there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. If it comes to a mouthful, you're supposed to spit it out. You're not supposed to swallow it again. If it comes to a mouthful and you still swallow it, then this will break your fast. There's no kafara, but there is qada. You make up that fast. In the same way, if a person vomits deliberately, intentionally attempts to vomit, that vomit, the intentional vomit, will break the fast, and they'll have to do qada. As for in the nose, if water reaches to the throat or the brain, you cannot take medicine through the nostrils, and inhaling smoke or vapor, something accidentally, then this can break the fast, but not necessary. If it's something like where a person there was no control in that scenario. For example, they're walking and there's dust everywhere, and it's kind of a little windy, and the dust is flying around. They sniff, so it's possible that some dust went in their nose. This is not going to break the fast. It's really about if there's smoke and a person is really consuming it or sniffing it to the point where it will break their fast. Inhaling smoke, for example, from other people, from cigarettes and things like this. Then inshallah, now we're talking about kafara. Kafara. Kafara comes from the word takfir. Takfir means, which comes from the word kafr, not kufr, kafr. Kafr means to cover. Kafirullahu sayyatihim. Allah forgives. It means to cover sins. Kafara is an act that through completing it, it is an atonement to eradicate a sin. Why is kafara necessary? One of the greatest wisdoms for kafara is itself a discipline to fast. See, if there was no kafara, then there would be less fear in breaking the fast. So if a person didn't fast, they had to fast, they were obliged to fast, and they didn't fast. They had no excuse, but they were lazy. And they didn't fast, they have to make qada, they have to make up for that fast. However, once a person is fasting, and they have control of themselves, and they're getting hungry, and they're just thinking, what, I'm just gonna eat and I'll make up for this fast later. I can't bear it today. This is the means of discipline. That person does not have the ability to just make up for that one fast. If there's no udhr shar'i, if there's no permissible, valid Islamic excuse, then that person needs to make up for that one fast and also fast the kafara. And in many cases, the kafara is fasting 2 consecutive months. So this is a reason that the kafara is so extreme. So to have people maintain their discipline, to help them maintain their discipline, it's a mechanism to keep people within their own control. If there's bukhur, then if you're sniffing it directly, like smelling it, smelling the fragrance is not an issue. But the smoke that's coming out, if you're smelling it directly and it is coming to your throat and up your nose or anything like this, then yes, you will have to do qada. Asthma, inshallah, will come up. Now, kafara is done in 3 ways. It's done in such a way that the first one is necessary. If the first one cannot be done, then the second one, and then if the second one not, then the third. The first way is actually not possible nowadays, so that's why you'll see in here only 2. The first is freeing a slave. If a person were to miss their, not miss their fast, they were to break their fast intentionally by eating with no valid excuse, then um, then they would have to free a slave. However, there are no slaves to free today. So then the second one becomes the first one today, which is شهرين متتابعين, is to fast 60 consecutive days without leaving any stop or without breaking in between. If a woman has menstruation, then the menstruation is not going to be considered as discontinuity. Rather, they can stop during the menstruation and then continue their 60 days. And this is because it's very uncommon that a woman would go 2 months without her menstruation. Will smelling essential oil as a medicine break the fast? It would depend if it's just a fragrance or that's something being like actually taken in. Just the smell of perfume, etc., will not break, but anything that is thicker than air, like smoke and vapor, these things will break the fast. If this kafara cannot be done, which is the kafara of fasting 2 months, if that's not possible, which has happened even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, then a person will feed 60 poor people 2 meals a day, or they can feed one person 2 meals a day for 6 days. Either way, you're feeding a person, you're feeding the poor for 60 days. Now there are 2 wajbas. There are 2 what's necessary is wajbatain, 2 full meals. So you can't just give them, a few dates and consider as one meal. No, 2 full meals. And one good way to consider that is what is considered a full meal, or the weight of that in your current city or location. So you have technically 61 days, the one that you made up, and then the 60 of kafara. Next, inshallah, we have those things that are غير مفطرات. The question here is, okay, in the fast of Ramadan that were missed in as a young teenager, is kafara necessary? Well, look, if you missed it and you didn't actually fast, there's no kafara. Kafara is if you break the fast without a valid excuse. So if the person were over 15 years old, or they were baligh and mature, then they were to fast, and then they were careless, or they thought nobody saw them and they have no excuse and they start eating secretly. If you were like that, then you should make tawbah for that time, and yes, you would have to do kafara as long as you're baligh. Actions that do not invalidate the fast. Abu Hurairah, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever forgets he is fasting and eats or drinks, let him complete his fast, for it is Allah Azza wa Jal who has fed him and given him to drink," as I had mentioned. So swallowing one's own saliva does not break the fast. One's mucus, swallowing one's mucus does not break one's fast, provided that it has not exited. So if it exited the mouth and it's like on the person's tongue and they could spit it out, then they swallow, then this would break, because this is not a part of their body anymore. Like I said, inhaling smoke or dust that's unintentionally, now that bakhur is there, or somebody is smoking a cigarette around you and you're very close, and you're careless because you don't even remember, you forgot you're fasting. In that case, no, anything that is in the state of nisyan, any in the state of forgetfulness, then there's, no matter what it be, there is no breaking of the fast, even if it were to be intercourse or even eating an entire meal. when I was young. Um, I grew up in a place where there weren't, in my school there weren't too many Muslims, but I still remember fasting. And I think Allah, like the hadith is so true, that Allah fed me, because I remember I was fasting. I knew I was fasting, but I totally forgot I was fasting, to the point where I ate full meals. But I was young at that time, so maybe, and because nobody else was eating there, so maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easier for me. But I still remember eating full meals, and then hours later realizing that I was fasting. And that happened to me so many times when I was young, so it does happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen anymore for some people. Oh, injections. Any type of medicine or anything else that's not going into the stomach is okay, like an injection in the arm, not going into the stomach or the brain. In the same way, ointment or something that's going into the ear, this will not invalidate the fast. In terms of this is a good question. Okay, so if you did this a few times, where you broke your fast without a valid excuse, do you do 60 times every single time, or for one whole Ramadan? There's a difference of opinion. Some scholars have said that you actually have to do it for every fast, individual fast that was missed, to make up for it. And some have said that no, for every Ramadan. The precautionary position is for every fast. If you can fast, you have to fast. You're only allowed to feed the 60 people in the case where you could not fast, or it would be too difficult for you to do so. And meaning that, like, you would not end up doing it. It would not happen. If it's impossible, then it's okay to feed. And some other actions that don't invalidate, they're not mufattirat, they don't actually break the fast. Okay, here, so what if you're able to but do not fast? It's haram. This will stay in your dhimma. This will stay in your accountability. It is impermissible to break the fast without a valid excuse, as it is impermissible to not do the kafara. So it's not that, okay, I made tawbah for the fast that I missed, so I'm going to be lazy about the kafara. Missing the kafara is also a sin. Can you brush your teeth with toothpaste? You should not. It's makruh, it's disliked. Will it break the fast? No, as long as it's not swallowed. If it is swallowed, then it'll break the fast, but no kafara. These are simple. That's a simple rule. Eight sisters. A blood test is okay. Cupping, blood extraction is not a problem. Removing teeth, it's best that you don't have dentist appointments during the time of fast, but it is okay as long as you don't swallow any medicine nor any blood. If you have some type of, like, you're absorbing air, you have an oxygen tank, it's okay. These are that's just a supplement of air that naturally people have. Miswak. So yeah, so you can use miswak, you can have your toothbrush, but if you're swallowing it, then it would break the fast, and if you full swallowed it, then you would have to make up for that fast. Otherwise, it's makruh just to kind of stay away from it. Swimming, here we went over this. Tasting food. Okay, tasting food. There's a difference of opinions in this Hanafi scholars, which people have heard it a little bit and then they start applying it whatever way that they want, which is incorrect. They should fully understand the implications of that ruling. Tasting food is generally disliked and it should not be done. The scholars have said that if, for example, in the case of a woman or somebody cooking, could be even, it could be even where a person's job is to cook. Their job is to cook. They are a cook, and if they don't cook proper food, they could lose their job. So in a case where it could affect their relation, cause fights in the house where the wife is not cooking proper food because she's not able to taste it. In the same way, a person's job requires that the food be of a certain level, it be in a certain to fit a certain standard, then it is permissible for them to taste it, provided they do not swallow it. In the case where it is not so severe, but to just taste it anyways, just because I'd rather enjoy what I eat, and there's no real valid excuse, then it would be disliked. In that case where there is some type of durura, there is some type of need, like the rule in fiqh, الحاجات تنزل منزلة الضرورة, that certain requirements, they are considered, they bring some lenience. المشقة تجلب التيسير. These are all rules of fiqh, قواعد الفقه. So in these cases where then it would be okay. Nicotine patches, here he says, doesn't invalidate the fast. Is it permissible for somebody who is a chain smoker or a regular smoker for them to, instead of smoke cigarettes, to use nicotine patches? This would be makruh tahrimi. It should not be done whatsoever. As for does it break the fast? No, it cannot break the fast because there's no consumption there. Can it be done? Should the person be doing it? No, they should not be doing it. Vomiting, here I mentioned that if there's some FAQs, frequently asked questions. Vomiting, what is the ruling of vomiting? Deliberately vomiting will break the fast. Vomiting accidentally or uncontrollably, this does not break the fast. So if a person vomits because they felt nauseous, then they can continue their fast. It's not an issue. However, if a person vomits a little bit where it doesn't actually leave their mouth and swallow it, doesn't break their fast. But if it was a mouthful and then they chose to swallow it, that would break their fast and require qada. Okay, is that understood? You can read through it here. It's simplified. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, he mentions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said 3 things do not break the fast: cupping, vomiting, and a wet dream. These things are not mufattirat, they do not break the fast. Okay. How does one decide when vomiting is a mouthful? Who can give me an answer to that? Hmm? It's okay, you don't have to be right. Why doesn't somebody give me give you guys 10-15 seconds. Not sure if you guys are typing, maybe slow. The different answers people gave. Generally, when they say when you are incapable of holding it back, when there's ghalaba, there is kind of a forced reaction where there's no more control there, then in that case, then we're considered vomiting a mouthful. So we don't actually weight or measure. You don't have to measure, are you vomiting a mouthful or not? No. When the gag reflexes cannot control it, then it is considered a mouthful. So you know how sometimes it can come up to your throat and then it just comes down and so on. You didn't even really try. This is when the gag reflexes are within one's control and it's not excessive. That was ma'fu an, it's pardon, no problem. But that which could not be controlled, that is when there's an issue. Or when it is controlled, then you held it in your mouth and swallowed it, this is an issue. This is a very important question because this happens to a lot of people. A little amount of vomit went up my throat. Then as a reflex action, it went back down. I felt I had no control. Does my fast break? I already answered this for you guys. No. And if you didn't know that, then you're maybe not paying enough attention. One of the slides mentioned you can start fasting in the state of impurity. For example, if you have intercourse before you start your fast, do you have to shower before that time, or can you shower after you start your fast? You can shower after you start your fast. It's not a problem. It doesn't inhibit the fast from existing. Okay, there's a little bit of food, you ate suhoor, and then there's some food stuck in your teeth or something. Then will your fast break or not if that is swallowed? Who can give me an answer? Good. Samia, that's a good answer. That's the correct answer. Samia says no if it is smaller than the amount of a chickpea. Himmasa. As long as it is smaller than that amount, then if it was stuck in your teeth, then it is ma'fu'an. It's forgiven because of the haraj. It is not possible to avoid, generally speaking. وَالْمَشَقَّةُ تَجْلِبُ التَّيْسِيرِ. Just like in fiqh. Good job, Huda, Nida. Good job, guys. Do eardrops and eye drops break one's fast? Yes or no? Why not? Doesn't reach the stomach. Good. Doesn't reach the brain or the stomach. And exactly. There is no breaking of or nullifying of the fast in that. Nasal sprays. If you have a nasal spray, you already know that it would break the fast. The best thing to do is to consult your doctor and see if you can kind of apply it without going up, like maybe in the rims of your nose, or maybe there's a substitute where it doesn't need to be applied in your mouth. Tooth, we talked about. Deodorant smells is not an issue. You're allowed to have deodorants and perfumes. Smoking, yes, will break the fast. Qada and kafara are both necessary if a person is smoking full cigarettes, because it is full consumption. There's intentional, and it is against, contrary to the fast. Will break the fast, definitely. Okay, asthma pump. So somebody did ask that, so alhamdulillah, we've gotten to that point. Using an asthma pump while fasting will invalidate the fast, and qada will be necessary. However, not kafara. This is the general, because it's a requirement. And if a person found themselves in that state where they used it, then it is not something that they're doing out of desire, something that they're doing out of a medical need, and kafara will not be necessary. If a person cannot fast at all, and they need the asthma pump, then they can do qada of those days. And if the person is completely unable, due to their severe asthma, incapable of ever actually fasting properly without using an inhaler or an asthma pump, then they will do fidya. And a person just asked this, a fidya is the amount of sadaqatul fitr, which is given on the day of Eid, which amounts to usually $10 to $11. They will give sadaqatul fitr for every fast that was missed. This is what fidya is. Does taking an injection break one's fast? No, as long as it doesn't reach. Exactly. You just saw. Menstruation for women specifically. It is impermissible. It is impermissible and invalid to fast during menstruation. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that, and Aisha radiallahu anha indicates that we were told that in menstruation we don't have to make up for the prayers that we missed. However, we were told that we must make up for the fast that we missed because of the less amount and its quantity. Now, if a woman is in the state of menstruation before Ramadan, then Ramadan were to begin, then they can eat they should not eat in front of people, but they can eat on their own quietly. If menstruation happens while a woman is fasting, so today a woman is fasting, she does not have her menstruation, then in the midst of the day she has menstruation, then she will do she will not do tashabbuh bis-sa'im. She will, because the fasting does not permit her to the menstruation does not permit her to fast, then she should be eating, but also refrain from people seeing her. Now imagine if she was in menstruation, so she wasn't fasting, but then as the day passes, menstruation is ended. Now what does she do? In this case, because she is leaving the state of menstruation, meaning leaving the reason to not fast, she's coming into a reason to fast, coming into a pure state, then she still has to make up for that day because she has not fasted the entire day, but she should be doing a tashabbuh bis-sa'im. She should resemble the person fasting and refrain from eating for the rest of that day. But that will not be considered a fast. However, she should be doing this. Does a nursing woman need to fast? Yes or no? Good. No. In the case where she was not able to. But if she finds herself capable and there's going to be no harm going to the baby, then by all means she can fast. So it depends. She will be excused if needed. Otherwise, she should be fasting. So generally, it can. Good job, Buddha. Does one have to perform the qada right after Ramadan? And this was kind of similar to the question that was asked. Does it have to be performed before the next Ramadan? No, it's not necessary, but we already mentioned this, but it is good. Oh, this is a very common question people ask. The qada, the 6 days of Shawwal, that there are great fadila in fasting after Ramadan and 6 days within the next month. Can a person make an intention? It's very interesting. Can they make intention to do qada, to make up for the fast that were missed, as well as get the reward of Shawwal? There are two opinions. One is that no, and one is that yes. Because the qada has a greater value than Shawwal, and Shawwal is it's a general thing. It doesn't say there that you have to fast nafil or optional fast in Shawwal. Rather, it's fasting 6 times in Shawwal, and making up for a fast is fasting. So then the ulama say that the stronger opinion, rajih opinion, is that both can be considered completed through the qada in Shawwal. And that is because there's nothing that states otherwise. So al-asl fil ashya al-ibaha. There shouldn't be any issue there. I have not fasted all my life. Do I need to keep both qada and kafara? No, only qada. If you miss it, it's just qada. Kafara is when you break it without excuse. Fasting on an airplane. Okay. Shawwal fast have 6 days. No, in the month of Shawwal, not the first 6 days. No, in the month of Shawwal. Fasting an airplane. You don't need to because you're traveling. You don't need to. But if you do, you should be going according to the time zones that you're moving with. And that is something that you can confirm with, or obviously it's tentative to where you're flying. Next is something that most people know. There are some people that are exempted from fasting. Obviously the non-baligh, which we mentioned, the kafir, the non-believer, and as well as the majnoon, a person who's insane. But specifically mentioned in Quran 2 states. Ya a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun ayyaman ma'dudat. فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. That it's obligatory to perform the fast. However, if you are sick or traveling, then you can postpone that fast on 2 different days. What is the definition of sickness? A sickness that is inhibiting or making it difficult for the person to fast. So a runny nose usually doesn't do that. So a person is faqihun nafs, they know their own ability. And obviously with age and with different types of illnesses and different type of symptoms, people can find themselves in different scenarios, especially with COVID-19. So it is possible, and it's not necessary for people that are positive, are found positive of COVID-19 to be fasting. And for traveling, if you're traveling a distance in which usually is between 72 to 78 kilometers outside of your region or outside of your community, in which that travel requires now that you don't pray full prayer, you pray qasr, you have the 4 prayer units. So Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha are broken into half. So now you don't pray 2 rak'ahs, you don't pray 4 rak'ahs of Fajr, you pray 2 rak'ahs. In those scenarios where you'd be changing your Salah performance, you would not be required to also fast. Fidya is amount of sadaqah al-fitr, this mentioned before. If a person is, okay, so when you give fidya, fidya is in a state where you cannot do qada. So if you miss fast because of menstruation or because of sickness or travel, by all means, there's no sin, you make up for those days later. However, if you're so sick where there's no expectancy to ever recover from that, then you give fidya, which is the sadaqatul fitr for every fast that was missed. However, imagine if your condition improves. What happens? A person's giving fidya because they think they'll never get better, and then all of it means all of a sudden the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they're healthy again, then they would need to fast for those fasts that were missed, even though fidya was given, because fidya is only a compensation or a substitute for the inability of making up for the fast. And one of the last things here, inshallah, is you should read your du'as. After iftar, you can read Allahumma laka sumtu wa bika amantu wa ala rizqika aftartu. Here's without the ala, wa bika amantu. Oh Allah, I fasted for you, and with you, your sustenance, I completed my fast. Another one is ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر إن شاء الله, that our thirst has gone and our veins have been moistened from consuming again, and inshallah the reward is firm. Taraweeh is not necessary to pray in Jama'ah, but is the Sunnah. It should be prayed in Jama'ah. This is the way of Khulafa al-Rashideen, and it should be done 20 rak'ahs is the predominant opinion, and this is the which has been done throughout the Khilafah from the time of Ibn Khattab radiyallahu anh, and it should be upheld, and this is what has this majara alayhi turath. We say that this is what has been very strongly known amongst the scholars. And this is something that has come jilan and jil, it has come generation after generation. And according to, and this is the opinion of the Hanafi scholars, the Shafi'i scholars, and even the Maliki scholars, they believe in a rule of at-ta'amul ahl al-Madina, that when a historical practice exists, then it is extremely strong to act upon, because that is being implemented from those people who understand Quran and Sunnah in the best way and in the most possible, most plausible, correct way. And then there's a lot of questions about i'tikaf. So even in COVID-19, obviously many of the masajid are closed and they're not open, and there's a limit on restrictions on the amount of gatherings that can amount of people that can be gathered in one place. Taraweeh should still be done. If you can do with a few people, by all means, inshallah, that's good. If you cannot, then you should pray with whatever Quran that you have yourself, 20 rak'ahs. I'tikaf, there are a few types of i'tikaf. I'tikaf wajib, sunnah muakkada, and mustahab. Wajib, i'tikaf. Okay, i'tikaf means al-uzla or al-mukth mudda ma'luma, is to stay in seclusion for a certain amount of time in the mosque. What is defined as a mosque? The general rule is the greatest mosque and thereon. So first al-Masjid al-Haram, then al-Masjid al-Nabawi, then al-Bayt al-Maqdis, or al-Bayt al-Muqaddas, or Masjid al-Aqsa, These are how it should go in kind of category. However, because many people are not traveling all the way there for i'tikaf, then the rule goes that any masjid which 5 times salawat is being performed and there is an imam and a mu'adhin, someone to call adhan and someone to lead the salah. There are 3 types. One is wajib. Wajib meaning it's necessary on the individual person who makes a vow that, oh Allah, I promise, I make an oath to perform 5 days of i'tikaf. And fasting must be done as a condition of the i'tikaf. Second is sunnah mu'akkada kifaya, which is that in every locality it is necessary that at least one individual perform i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan. If they do not, if there are not a minimum amount of people doing it, then the entire community is sinful for this. This is called sunnah mu'akkada kifaya or fard kifaya. And preferable is any other type of i'tikaf. The question that people have okay, they can't go to the masjid, can they do i'tikaf in their home? Yes. It'd be good for them to do type of i'tikaf in their home because they're unable to do it in the masjid. By all means, just like women, they should be setting a place in their home if they can do i'tikaf, and they should do i'tikaf there. I'tikaf is the masjid. I talked about that. Fasting during i'tikaf is necessary. In the optional i'tikaf, not necessary, but in the fard kifaya, which is like the last 10 days of Ramadan, when you're doing that one, and in the wajib one, the necessary one, then you have to. To break the i'tikaf, this is done by leaving the masjid without a valid excuse. For women, for them to be in a state of nifas or menstruation. Nifas meaning postpartum bleeding. And any type of intercourse, or Allah says, لا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون بالمساجد في المساجد. Don't engage in intercourse while you are in i'tikaf. عاكفون المساجد. Also, there's some dislike things like doing business without need. It's okay to do business if it's necessary. And you're not supposed to, with the condition that you don't bring the commodities inside the mosque, like anything remotely. Also, another famous thing that they say is staying silent. It's not necessary to be a monk there. You're not supposed to be a monk of silence and like vow silence. A vow of silence doesn't exist. It's good to remain silent so that you don't talk about useless things, but silence itself is not a worship. When can you leave the masjid? You can leave the masjid to relieve yourself, to shower from janaba, from ritual impurity. However, you cannot do that from just because you want to bathe. And if there's Jummah Salah not there, then you can go, if there's any very severe need. Eating, this question here, am I allowed to leave the masjid to eat while in i'tikaf? You're not supposed to. It's better to eat in the masjid. If there's no option, then you have to eat outside and then come back inside quickly. So that concludes our lesson of the day. Are there any questions before, inshallah, we conclude? By the authorities, including scholars prior to this Salah timings were based on calculating in Ramadan, the authority. If this is a kind of a question that kind of happens regularly, actually, it's a issue that happens all the time. So if actual human eye observation was done and that was accepted by the scholars and the authorities, etc., they did whatever investigation required and they set a time. Then Ramadan time comes and without reinvestigating, without doing all these things, then they change the time. That would be a disservice. If it was done correctly throughout the year, and then they just change our 2 to 3 minutes without really, and this has happened, where they change for just, oh, they agree, okay, we're going to make it 4 minutes earlier, and they have maybe some little sources that they're kind of, maybe they're looking at online, or they're getting some information that are giving indication that they can base that on. It is a disservice to it's a disservice to implement a very firm, strong, fully assessed and built structure, and then for the ease of a few minutes to forego that thoroughness, and to just apply something that's just, find some type of excuse or something that can give you some supporting evidence and apply it. That's actually a very great disservice to the authentic way of doing it. So if that were to happen, which it does, I would prefer that the people take the ihtiyat, they take the precaution that was given through proper tahqiq, proper research, and they should not forego it just because an organization or a group of people, they decided something else. They are doing khariq of what we call of the hukam. They are trying to break the ruling that was once existed. The ruling should only be broken. So now if thorough research was done, and it was set at 9 o'clock, and everybody agreed, and then there are one or two imams and maybe some community members, they join together and they say, you know what, because of this, we're going to change it ourselves, 3 minutes, it'll be beneficial. Unless the new study is of equal weight and value or more than the past study, then it should not be taken as the new ruling. Okay? This is the kharq. This is where people are breaking a muhakkam, a very strong rule, on a weaker basis, which is not appropriate. That's why I said it's a disservice. Does that answer your question, Ghalib? Would it break your fast? Yeah, that would be up for debate, depending. If it was found that they were incorrect, then yes, you'd have to make up for that fast. This is why it would be best not to do it. Is it permissible to do i'tikaf for a few hours? Yes. If it's not wajib i'tikaf, or you're not doing the 10 days set time i'tikaf, the sunnah i'tikaf muakkada, then yeah, you can do i'tikaf for even a few minutes. You should close your fast before. Yeah, before Fajr enters, a few minutes before is always good to be a little safe. But generally speaking, many calendars have actually kept in mind a few minute a few minutes safety margin for you anyways. So you should go according to the imams that have built it, ask them, inquire, and inshallah you can act accordingly. If they haven't, if they give an exact time, then by all means, maybe to give a minute or two to be safe on your end, or 3 minutes is good. But if they have already given that protective shield, then inshallah no issue. There are no more questions, inshallah. Eating suhoor is sunnah. Should eat suhoor. Even if a person finds they slept and they find it hard for them to eat, then drink water. That will be suhoor, inshallah. For the zakat webinar, I believe we should have it online, or whoever joined in, we will have it recorded as well, inshallah. It's already on the Facebook, so you can check there. If there are different calendars, follow the predominant one. The one that have the most ulama behind it, not the biggest organization, the one that has the most ulama and the most tahqiq behind it, most research. All right. Any feedback? How did you guys enjoy the program, the 2 days, the zakat and the fasting? You guys feel like you learned a lot? Ask your imams. Alhamdulillah. Stay tuned, inshallah. We'll be doing more and more things. I was wondering if during Ramadan, is there anything that you guys would like us to do, maybe daily or weekly or something? Because I know many of you, there's nothing happening in the masjid. So I was wondering if maybe there's something that we could provide that would be beneficial to the public that you guys would like to see or learn or kind of benefit from. If there's anything, then inshallah you guys can let me know and I can daily reminders. Any specific topics or maybe a course throughout the month, Sirah, Qiyamah, or like kind of day-to-day talks. What are you guys kind of looking for? I think we'll be doing tafsir this year. We should be doing tafsir. Maybe we'll do something else as well. That's why I'm kind of just wondering what your input would be. What you guys would actually want. Tazkiyah. Tazkiyah would be good. Khair, inshallah. I will write these down. Tazkiyah, Sirah, daily reminders, tafsir. Inshallah, we'll discuss as soon as possible and announce as soon as possible. So stay tuned, inshallah. We'll have more courses for you guys. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you all tawfiq, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you istiqamah and steadfastness in the month of Ramadan. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families, keep you safe in this time of COVID-19, keep you healthy, wealthy, and afiyah. And please don't forget us in your du'as. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.